The world's religions have a great deal to offer for the environmental crisis, even though they are late in coming to the issue. And of course, science and policy and economics have been dealing with this for some time. But at the same time, a religious, spiritual, ethical sensibility, I think, is necessary to be in dialogue with, in conversation with these other key partners on the environment. And I think if the religions come with a sense of humility and dialogue, that will be especially important. The sensibilities that they can bring in their best face forward, so to speak, is that religions have always had a profound sense in their rituals, in their symbol systems, even in their scriptures, of how humans live in relation to nature, seasons, cycles, the elements. And so it's these profound cosmological dynamics that we need to retrieve, rethink, and if you will, bring forward in new forms. Religions have always recreated themselves over time, and this crisis brings them face to face with one of their greatest challenges, to meet this sense of life and diminishment on the planet in a sense of reverence and moral imperative about what's at stake here. It's definitely the case that religions have, in the last several centuries, concentrated more on divine human relations, human-human relations, and human-earth relations seems to have fallen into the background. In part, you could say, for a whole range of reasons. The movements of modernity since the French Revolution, Enlightenment period, rationalism, individualism, freedom, and then, of course, with market economy, globalization, science, technology, and so on. The sense of our embeddedness in ecosystems, in life systems, relationship to species, some of that has been hugely dimmed down with urbanization as well. The religious symbols and scriptures and sensibilities have been for centuries grounded in human-earth relationships, as well as divine-human, human-human relationships. And what Thomas Berry has said is that we have these other ethical relationships, if you will, for humans and divine. But we do not have an ethics for biocide and geocide. And that is the level at which we need to reconstitute a spiritual sensibility about life on the planet, species that are going extinct, the pollution that we have fomented around the world. And what does this mean in relationship to our own inner sensibilities? You know, there's a reflection there of outer pollution and inner confusion and inner addictions and so on that is very marked. Having said all that, I do think that religions are beginning to mobilize around this issue. There are many, many statements which are up on the Harvard website that, of course, are well-intentioned, like many statements are, but come back to reflect this role that religions can play. There's a marvelous statement of the bishops from the Columbia River area of the northwest of North America, of Canadian and U.S. bishops, constituting a new bioregional sensibility around the Columbia River, drawing on indigenous sensibilities before modern white invasion, if you will. What is the modern presence, a new sense of Seattle as a city in the bioregion, and pointing towards the future to sustainability. So this is, I think, representative of statements that have emerged in various parts of the world. There's also another fascinating interreligious statement, if you will, between the Greek Orthodox Patriarch Bartholomew, based in Istanbul, and the Pope, in Rome, obviously. At the end of a symposium 2 summers ago on the Adriatic, they had a historic statement released in Venice of a joint statement of these two branches of the Christian churches on the radical need for an environmental sensibility to move forward. Now, we can all say statements may remain on paper, but I think what we need to do is call forward the action, just as all these declarations need to be actualized. And in fact, there are a number of remarkable projects around the world that are from grassroots moving forward. You have Buddhists in Thailand ordaining trees to protect sacred groves, very effective symbolic acts. You have Hindus cleaning up rivers, the Ganges rivers, and other pilgrimage sites, and saying, if this is sacred to our tradition, we can't allow modern pollution and chemicals to destroy it. So rethinking those kinds of sensibilities. There's a magnificent temple in South India that's taken trees, seedlings, and said as a prasad, an offering to the devotee, take this and plant it, you see, as a new ecological act. And just one other example, in Zimbabwe, after the Civil War, when deforestation was rampant, a project arose that's probably 15 years old now, that's a stunning example of how the religions can cooperate beyond their theological doctrinal differences. And here you have a case where the Shona, African indigenous peoples, have come together with the Dutch Reformed churches, traditionally somewhat conservative, on a tree planting project where they have been planting in recent years 1 million trees a year. Stunning. Not only that, when we visited there a few years ago, they've developed a theology of the Eucharist, of the tree, of thanksgiving for this form of life, this deeply symbolic entity, you know, the roots and the branches and the whole thing. So when they plant it, they have rituals of thanksgiving that bring together these two very, very different religious approaches. Quite stunning, quite amazing, and I think very, very hopeful for us to see. Well, it is true that indigenous traditions have these sensibilities of close human-earth relations and have had them for millennia, and that we know this is the longest sense of human consciousness on the planet actually comes out of indigenous peoples of all of the continents. My husband studies in particular the Crow tribe, and he studies their ritual of the sun dance. And clearly this sense of the sun as the source of all life emerging, along with water and the other elements, is very, very profound. The world's religions, though, are not absent in consciousness of these same sensibilities. Mircea Eliade, the historian of religion at the University of Chicago from Romania, himself said years ago that when the world's religions recover this connection to very fundamental sensibilities of seasonal cycles, of light and dark, day and night, and so on, that are built into, for example, Christian symbols, the whole liturgical cycle is closely related to the solstice, the dark and then the sun emerging again, or Easter, the renewal of life in springtime, and so on. And that a resurrection symbol is very much life, death, rebirth of natural systems. So recovering that profound connection to nature and culture and civilization requires that we begin to understand these symbols in a new moment by suggesting that we need to recover them, but recover them also in a cosmological consciousness that says we're part of, as the Earth Charter likes to says in the preamble, we're part of this vast evolving universe, and Earth, our home, is alive with a myriad community of life forms. So that cosmological consciousness of a huge emergence of life over billions of years, now grounded in the particular forms of life, the elements, the seasons that we know now, is something that religions can raise up into our consciousness, because this enormous alienation that's been created by modernity, and it's not that we can point to one cause, multiple aspects of modernity, urbanization among them, has created huge disconnects. But to reverse that and suggest we are linked from stardust to us, if you will. This walk through time at the Parliament of World Religions says a mile-long connection to each of these magnificent stages of the emergence of life is crucial to our own understanding of who we are, how we belong, and what our role is now. That it's an empowering sensibility that we are now responsible for the continuity of life in some form, with a humble sense that we need to work with these systems. We need new forms of design. We need new sensibilities for commerce, for ecological economics, for the fair trade that's working with people and ecosystems, that's in conjunction with equity issues and so on. So we need a whole new eco-justice sensibilities, sustainability programs that are going to make practical this sensibility that's emerging in human consciousness.